Well, Canada has announced retaliatory tariffs on roughly $20 billion worth of U.S. goods. Ottawa says the new duties match dollar for dollar the 50% tariffs that are imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Let's hear now from British Columbia Premier David Eby, who joins us. Premier, great to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
What's your reaction to today's retaliatory tariffs, and do you support the federal government's decision to move forward with them?
Well, the federal government has not just my full support, but I think the full support of the vast majority of British Columbians. This is a proportionate response. It's pretty clear to me that the federal government is not seeking to escalate here. This is a matching response. You hit us, we hit you back on the same categories at the same levels. One of the pieces that I was looking for that I haven't heard yet is discussion of non-tariff measures. When you get kicked in the back by your friend, you don't turn around and buy $12 billion of fighter jets from that friend. And there's lots still on the table for the federal government to have a conversation about with the President of the United States. And at some point, it will click, I think, for the President that the relationship between Canada and the U.S. is a mutually beneficial one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to zoom into BC for a moment because it has a particularly large exposure to the U.S. through forestry, mining, energy, agriculture. Which industry do you think is most vulnerable right now, or are they all very vulnerable?
Well, there's no question that these American tariffs are going to hit BC companies and specifically BC families quite hard. These are people who worked hard, played by the rules. They're producing things that the Americans need, affordable plywood to build homes more affordably, veneer products like flooring. For Americans who want to do a bit of a renovation, cut flowers for their weddings, fishing poles. You could go on, and I struggle to understand why, in a cost of living crisis, the president would be looking to Canada as a place to put additional taxes on Americans. One of the things I was reassured by in the federal government's announcement today was that they're settling in for the long haul and that they've said very clearly, whatever it takes for as long as it takes, because I think this will be a protracted dispute. And there's no question but that BC businesses and families will need support. And of course, our provincial government will be there as well for them.
Well, and to that point, right, like many Canadians are asking how you retaliate against a powerhouse economy without shooting yourself in the foot. Do you think Canadians will inevitably bear some of the costs of these retaliatory measures, at least in the short term?
I think there's a broad understanding among Canadians and certainly among the British Columbians that I'm speaking to that there is going to be some pain here, but also an understanding that any agreement or deal that we might have signed with the president was maybe good for this week, but not much longer than that. A bully will always come back for more lunch money. And at some point, Canada had to say enough. And I'm glad the Prime Minister did. I know the majority of people that I'm speaking to here, universally, actually, I haven't spoken to anyone that doesn't support the Prime Minister's approach to this. And so at this point, we need to settle in. We need to make sure that we're looking after our businesses and our people and really expand our markets overseas. This really underlines the importance of the work the Prime Minister's been doing, that we've been doing here at the provincial level to reach out to overseas markets and to build markets. We can't replace the U.S., but at a minimum, we can have a little bit of protection for ourselves from the swings in administration policy that we're seeing out of the White House currently.
I was going to ask next if you're concerned that the U.S. could retaliate further. It sounds as though you feel that could be a real possibility. If it does, would you support Canada responding with additional measures, like even further additional measures?
Yes, I do support the Prime Minister continuing to respond in kind with the U.S. Here in British Columbia, for example, we ship thermal coal from the United States out of the Westport here on the West Coast because the U.S. can't ship it out of any of their other ports along the West Coast. It's areas like this that the Prime Minister should be looking at, that I'm encouraging him to look at federal jurisdiction. And for ourselves in the province, we're looking at ways that we can support Canadian businesses more, support BC businesses more. It's unfortunate. I think it hurts everybody. It definitely hurts Canadians more, but not as much as becoming subject to the United States, the 51st state in all but name. That's just not going to happen on any of our watches, and the Prime Minister's right to push back.
Okay, I want to talk about supporting businesses in just a moment, but just on the retaliatory front, you have said every weapon is on the table. So I wonder, would you support using BC's natural resources as leverage, like potentially tariffing or even restricting energy exports?
Yes.
You would. Okay.
I mean, I can expand on that. Every tool on the table means that it needs to be done in a coordinated way at the national level. For our part, for British Columbia's part, I've said very clearly to the Prime Minister, if you are looking to us to support a federal action, we're here. And we'll do that as part of a coordinated action. We just need to make sure that British Columbians are protected in such a scenario. We'll do our part, and that's my commitment to Canadians, to British Columbians, and to the Prime Minister. And I think British Columbians have a long history of contributing to support this country and support efforts like this. It's a proud history. It's one that extends way back, and will continue to be part of who we are as a province. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of our province for being willing to say, we will step up and we will help support and protect this country in the face of an attack, an unjustified attack we didn't ask for, from the President of the United States for reasons that are known only to him, and that will only hurt Americans in terms of higher costs.
Just quickly, by a coordinated action, what does that mean? Because we know Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has said not a chance that will happen in terms of tariffing energy exports. Like, do you mean all provinces need to be on board?
Than Premier Smith, and I don't put any of the items that are in her province up in terms of the discussion. I'm just speaking for British Columbia and what we're willing to do as part of a coordinated federal effort. We're here. We're here to line up shoulder to shoulder with Canadians from coast to coast to coast and say enough is enough. And if we're the first country to do it, I think other countries will come along as well. You know, the discussions going on with Mexico, I'm sure Mexico is watching closely. Other countries that are getting arbitrarily punished by the United States on the whims of the president. At some point, someone has to step up and say enough. And I'm proud and glad that it was Canada and our Prime Minister that did it.
Okay, so let's now talk about support for businesses, because as you mentioned, Canada's unveiled that additional $7.5 billion package to support businesses and workers affected by the measures from the U.S. Which sectors in BC do you expect will receive or will need the most support?
Yeah, this is a good start, and I'll say that it is just a start. The impact is going to be significant in British Columbia and Quebec, Ontario. We're the major provinces that trade with the United States. Alberta is largely oil. And so when you're talking about manufacturing or value-added goods, that's where you're going to see the impact. And so for BC, wood products, we've spent a lot of time and energy in getting more value per tree, doing more manufacturing here in the province. Those sectors are going to be hit. We've already seen impacts on pulp. We've seen impacts in primary forestry, dimensional lumber, value-added products. That's the sector that I am the most anxious about. But of course, we have a manufacturing sector and electronics sector. They do highly specialized work. They have partners in the United States that are their primary customer, in some cases their only customer. And so they're looking at multi-million-dollar charges as a result of these tariffs. So, these do have very serious consequences, and for Canadian companies, and also for their American partners, and ultimately for American consumers who are looking to do something as basic as a home renovation.
Is your province prepared to step in with additional support if the federal package falls short of what's needed?
We are. We'll be there to support British Columbians, and we'll do our piece. The federal government has rightly said, for as long as it takes, they will be there, and will be a strong partner for the feds in supporting British Columbians, of course.
Okay, and I also want to get your take on an issue that came up during the trade talks. The U.S. apparently pushing to restrict Canada's ability to pursue independent trade relationships with other countries. Given BC's significant trade relationship with China, do you see the province being particularly affected if this remains a sticking point? I see you shaking your head there.
I was just outraged by it. I mean, the idea that the President of the United States could tell Canada which countries we could trade with. I mean, there comes a point where there's just a refusal to recognize the sovereignty and the independence of a country that you're dealing with that moves beyond global strategy to merely being insulting. We have coordinated trade strategy with the United States for generations. The president surely knows that, but the idea that he could dictate unilaterally with the threat of tariffs who we trade with and who we don't is a step too far. I found it the most outrageous aspect of the American ask of Canada, and we'll trade with whoever the hell we want to, and the president can deal with that. I think there's always willingness on the part of Canada as a good partner and ally for generations with the U.S. to have discussions about how we coordinate our trade efforts. But the idea that the president's going to come in and tell us what to do is a step too far.
And just lastly, the counter tariffs, they're set to take effect on September 8th. Are you optimistic that Canada and the U.S. can maybe get back to the negotiating table and reach some kind of an agreement before then?
There's just overwhelming support in the United States for Americans having a positive trade relationship with Canada. Americans do not see Canada as an economic or national security threat, and rightly so. We've both benefited significantly by the integration in our economies, and Americans are going to feel the brunt of this. They already feel record high gas prices as a result of the president's adventurism in other areas. Now they're going to see higher prices in daily items that they expect to see affordability around, including the most important, housing, the place where you live. And so at the end of the day, I think that cooler heads will prevail. We'll find a path forward. I recognize that it may not be with this administration, and the federal government in Canada is right to settle in for the long haul. And that's what we're doing here in BC as well.
Okay, we got to leave it there. British Columbia Premier David Eby joining us live. Premier, really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.